I know every election cycle, we talk about this being the most important election, the most important moment in American democracy. But I truly believe that we are at kind of one of those pivotal moments in American history. For those who are kind of students of the evolution of our democracy, I think back to where this country was in the mid 1870s during that Reconstruction era and how differently things could have gone after the elections of 76 and the compromises that were made that led to the withdrawal of federal troops from the South. And here in Alabama, I mean, what we saw as a result of the end of Reconstruction was 115 years before Black Alabamians were able to elect another candidate of their choosing.
Alrighty, welcome back. Alabama Politics This Week. Josh Moon, David Person, and we are happy to have back with us Jerome Dees from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Jerome, how are you, man?
I'm good. At this point, I've been here so many times, I'm going to have to start collecting royalties from y'all.
That's right. That's right. Well, listen, if we had any, we'd give them to you. But yeah, no, we are going to have to start listing you as a host or something on this thing, man. But look, hey. We welcome you anytime. We're always happy to have you. You've been
always happy to be here,
fantastic guest with us and helped us answer a lot. I think we last time we were on, we were doing legal stuff and that always works out. Let me tell you, you're kind of like that utility knife. You keep in the pocket. You can answer all sorts of things. So we go to you for a bunch of different reasons, man. And so today we're pulling out that. You remember the Swiss Army knives? We had that little toothpick, little plastic toothpick in the size. Now we're pulling out the toothpick. We wanted to talk to you and the folks at SPLC did a fantastic job over the last weekend with the All Roads Lead to the South protest that took place over the redistricting and voting rights in a very, very short period of time. You guys and some other folks working together with partners in this thing put together, as we were talking about before we started recording, it was really a very well put together protest. And I've heard that from a lot of people. And David said he heard it from a person as well. And I've heard it from a ton of people that it was a very well put together. So, yeah, I guess, first of all, how much work kind of went into that in trying to get that thing set up?
The logistics of putting together an event like that, even when you have a significant runtime, is a lot, but getting everything turned around in under a week, I think it was about 5-6 days, takes a significant amount of work. So, as you said, it wasn't just SPLC, groups like Black Voters Matter, NAACP, and so many others based here in Alabama as well as throughout the South and the country, really, really kind of pulled more than their weight to make sure that everything went off smoothly.
Yeah, I think a lot of people see an event like that and they don't necessarily give credit for what has to happen with the organizers behind the scenes on that thing. Because, look, let's be honest. Everybody has a bit of an ego on things, and listen, if you're involved in a cause, rightfully so, you think that cause is very important. You think that group that you're representing is a very important group, and you think the people that you're going to get to speak for your group is a very important group of people. And so if you're putting this together, you've got to manage all of those egos and get the AOCs and the Cory Bookers and Terry Sewell and Shamari Figures and you got to give everybody their time, and you've got to put everybody at a place where they feel comfortable, they're seen, they're heard, and it's got to be. I've thought about it before, man. To do that in a short period of time has got to be just like herding cats, right?
For sure. And I think one of the things that hopefully participants and those viewing saw was the centering of local voices. It was important for the organizers to make sure that since this was happening in Montgomery at that historic location, I mean, as you're kind of from the vantage point of the stage, looking straight down Dexter at Fountain and thinking of the history of 1955 and Rosa Parks, and knowing that directly across the street is the office where the telegram was sent to fire on Fort Sumter in 1861. Diagonal from you is the church where Dr. King led his parishioners, and back behind you is the state capitol and the initial first White House of the Confederacy. And so making sure that folks were grounded in that, and that discussions were led by folks who have been here on the ground doing this work much longer than just 5-6 days, for 5-6 decades, really.
Right. Yeah. One thing real quick before David asks the question, you're right about the history that's down there. And I mean, there's so much of it that you sometimes just stumble across it, and you don't even realize it. That when they were filming the movie Selma, for example, the producers went over to the church at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, where Dr. King started, his career as a pastor there, and started preaching. And they asked them if they could use the pulpit that he used, the lectern that he used there at the church. And the folks who led the church said, no, you can't do that. But listen, we've got an old one in the basement. You can have that one. You can use that one and drag it up. So they drug it up, put it up out there on the thing, and as they were shooting it and looking at and juxtaposing the photos, they realized that the old one was actually the one that he had used to stand behind. And so they were like, we had no, and I talked to the actor who played him, and he said, when he learned this, he was just in tears, thinking that he had stood there behind it, because he'd put so much effort into studying him, and it's just, but you do that all the time in Montgomery when it comes to civil rights history. It just is, it's such a it's a place there that and it's kind of bittersweet, because you don't want to remember what caused it all, but you do want to remember the triumphs, that helped so many people to better lives. But it can be a remarkable and a remarkably frustrating place at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you were talking about the great actor David Oyelowo. He's just brilliant.
Yes.
And not only was he, I mean, everything I've ever seen him in, he's been brilliant.
Right.
And I highly recommend, I'm just going to, Jerome, let me digress for a minute. I highly recommend on Paramount Plus the series that he's in. It's called
Bass.
I think it's called Bass Reeves.
Bass
where
Reeves.
He plays
that's where the mustache.
Oh, he gets a mustache.
From a combination of that and like Yellowstone and that whole series.
Yeah. You know what? That's a great point, Jerome.
These days,
you are definitely projecting a little Bass Reeves there. That's a great point.
That's
man.
Listen, hey man, it's you can get on a Western kick in a hurry. That Yellowstone is a beautiful show to look at. I didn't like and I know we're digressing even further here, but it was. Hey, listen, it's our show. We can do whatever the hell we want to here. We
do what you want.
Yeah, and listen. Yeah, we're all co-hosts here, right? So, so it was, it was a beautiful show to look at. I felt like the 1883 was actually a better written show than Yellowstone. That 1883 was
1923
so
is my favorite of the.
Oh, really?
Well,
1923 went a little slow for me. It went a little slow for me on that. Yeah, sorry.
I haven't seen those two, but Landsman was the one that I really liked. With Billy Bob Thornton.
I like Billy. I'm a big Billy Bob Thornton fan.
That's great to me.
That helps. Yeah. Now listen, if y'all really want a good Western, all right. If you really want a good Western, you should read oh man, I'm drawing a blank on the book, the old Lonesome Dove. Lonesome Dove. You should
Oh,
read Lonesome
sure,
Dove. I'm telling. Oh,
sure.
and also there's an old television series. Now I didn't like the
Yeah.
television series as much as I liked the book, but that book
Okay.
by Larry McMurtry was really something special. So, anyways, I'm sorry we've digressed enough. Go ahead, David.
All right, I got a question for Bass Reeves here. No, I'm just joking. Jerome Dees. All right, so Jerome, first of all, let me just say, and I want to try to get your sense of why this decision was made. I think it was a really great decision. You basically created what I would call sort of a hip hop sort of template or flavor. Maybe flavor is a better word for the rally, in that you had a DJ up there on stage, and then you also had a hype woman. I don't know the young woman's name who was the MC, but she was, I mean, she brought a real flavor, a hip hop flavor to the whole thing. What was the thinking behind those two decisions to bring on the DJ and the hype woman?
So Dee is actually one of the lead folks for Black Voters Matter, and so
Okay.
really kind of played a lead role in sort of the organizing of all of this, from the speakers to coordinating the volunteers behind the scenes, the logistics of coordinating with Montgomery PD, so that way there was like a security checkpoint and barricades to kind of help funnel folks through. And so really took on a lion's share of the work. But I think, as those who tuned in saw, she is an absolute kind of dynamic powerhouse when it comes to kind of keeping the energy up. And like we said earlier, before we started recording, I mean, it was 84, 86 degrees out there. Event lasted a couple of hours. And so no matter how sort of motivating the circumstances are to get folks down there, that's a long time to keep people sort of engaged and enthused. And I think Dee did an absolutely incredible job of keeping people's spirits up and focused and centered on why we were there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Also, this event was very successful in being political but not partisan. You know, considering that you had a slew of Democratic elected representatives there, I'm assuming that was intentional.
Absolutely. So, I mean, first off, obviously, you've got a lot of sort of C3 issue-based organizations that are participating. And so for just obvious legal reasons, can't engage in partisan political activity.
Has anybody told the Republicans that?
But what I think is, and you all have touched on this in countless podcasts with me and with other guests, is that, I mean, we are just in an environment now where oftentimes the issues themselves become partisan. If you are talking about expanding the Democratic, small d Democratic franchise, making sure that folks have meaningful access to the ballot, that they have a meaningful opportunity to elect candidates of their choice. If you just say those phrases, it comes across as partisan, even though it's not Democrat or Republican. These are just sort of ideals of what a democracy should look like. And so as this event is kind of coming together and as it played out, yes, there were a number of Democratic, capital D, elected officials there. But the message and the moment was not about partisan politics. It's about kind of the history of Black folks in Alabama, in the South, and across the country, and the hurdles and obstacles that they have had to overcome in order to meaningfully exercise the right to vote and meaningfully truly participate in the citizenship that they have in this country.
Josh touched on something earlier that I want you to sort of expound on. You did an amazing job of getting some of the biggest names in the American political process. I mean, Cory Booker, Warnock, AOC, and even somebody who, while she's not a politician, has amazing name recognition and just symbolizes so much in Reverend Bernice King. How did you get that array of people to agree to participate in this event, which, even though I know all eyes were sort of on Alabama, for a lot of reasons, it wasn't Washington, D.C. It wasn't the March on Washington. I mean, it was a rally in Montgomery. How did you get those names there?
Well, again, I can't take any sort of personal credit for that, but if I can speak on behalf of those folks, I think it was an understanding of the importance and gravity of the moment that we're in. I know every election cycle, we talk about this being the most important election, the most important moment in American democracy. But I truly believe that we are at kind of one of those pivotal moments in American history. For those who are kind of students of the evolution of our democracy, I think back to where this country was in the mid 1870s during that Reconstruction era and how differently things could have gone after the elections of 76 and the compromises that were made that led to the withdrawal of federal troops from the South. And here in Alabama, I mean, what we saw as a result of the end of Reconstruction was 115 years before Black Alabamians were able to elect another candidate of their choosing. It was from 1877 until 1992 when Earl Hilliard was elected. That is a direct result of sort of the repealing of a lot of those voting access and voting rights protections. And we're seeing those same sorts of repeals and retrenchments in this very moment right now in 2026. And so when I think folks really understand the historical context in which we find ourselves, I don't think it's a question of, do I come down to Montgomery? It's how do I get down to Montgomery? Because this moment is too important to pass up. And I think that goes for not just the big name sort of celebrity political figures, but everyday folks who drove over from Jackson, Mississippi, or drove up from Jacksonville, Florida. You saw so many folks who were in their 70s and 80s and were around for the civil rights movement that just kind of overhearing and eavesdropping on conversations of folks up along Dexter Avenue of like, I thought we'd already fought these battles. I thought these were behind us. But it's important for me to be here to continue the struggle and make sure that we continue to progress and don't fall back any further. So I think there has been a true understanding of the moment that we find ourselves in and a desire to do what folks can in light of whatever capacity that person has available to participate and pull them.
So it was great. It was a great event, and I think it will go a long way in towards furthering the cause. But I think one of the things that I and some other folks have been critical of in terms of the No Kings protests that have happened is that they've kind of been protests without really an ultimate goal. Other than to stand out and say, hey, we're really mad about what's happening right now. Where I felt like this was an opportunity to actually do something and lay the groundwork for something that could bring about some significant change, and that is, of course, voting, getting folks out to the polls. We just had a primary election in the state of Alabama in which just 22% of the registered voters showed up, and so I guess, obviously the goal out of this is to get folks registered, to get people out to the polls, to get some like-minded people out there to just say, hey, we want to protect voting rights for everybody. What are the next steps forward? What's going to happen here, going forward? What do y'all hope to see? What sort of projects should we look for?
Absolutely. This past Tuesday was a primary election, and you mentioned a couple numbers of voter turnout. I think some of the earliest numbers that I've been able to comb through this morning, like you said, voter turnout was around 23%, which is about what we saw in the 2022 primary. But if you dig a little bit deeper, and again, trying not to get too partisan, but as we know in the South, party participation often aligns with race. Right. I mean, it's one of the underlying principles of sort of the redistricting battles that have taken place, and especially in the Milligan case, which is still being litigated this week. What we also saw was that in the 2022 primary, there were 180,000 some odd Democratic ballots that were cast that are largely African-American voters in the Black Belt or in Jefferson County or what have you.
Right.
Yesterday, there were 360-ish thousand Democratic primary ballots that were requested. Conversely, on the Republican side, it looks like there was about a 200,000 ballot decrease from 22 to 26. And so, like, total statewide, we see kind of a flatline number of participation, but when you break it down by party, there does seem to be kind of a significant shift there. And so that's something that as kind of more official results come out, and particularly those county by county results break down, I know a lot of voting rights organizations are really going to dig into that, which ultimately kind of leads me to finally answering the question that you asked, is that, and I hearken back to our talk about sort of the comparisons to Reconstruction. Mm-hmm. One of the things that existed during the Reconstruction era was a solid organizing and just community infrastructure. There were Black doctors. There were a host of other sort of resources that were available to folks in community as they were undergoing this sort of systemic oppression that was Jim Crow. Mm-hmm. That directly tied to folks' understanding of the need to participate in the voting practice, and ultimately led over decades to the 1950s and the beginning of the civil rights movement. We think about the organizing capacity that was present so that a Montgomery bus boycott could exist. Right. That's not just we're going to stand at the corner of Court and Dexter in Montgomery and say, hey, we want to be able to ride the bus. It takes a real infrastructure to be in place in order for something like that to happen. And so I think there are definitely going to be conversations about what that might look like, not just in Alabama, but across the South, and making sure that folks have a real understanding of how voting directly ties to all of the different issues that people already know that they care about, whether it's utility rates or transportation, making sure their sort of local roads are paved, or why is my kid having to use a 15, 20-year-old textbook where the pages are falling out. All of those things are directly tied to the individuals that we are voting for, whether it's at the congressional level or at the local school board level. And so really making sure folks are able to kind of clearly connect the dots and see those threads there. And so naturally, that's going to take a significant amount of work to lay that down. But I think we are in a moment where coalition building is integral and imperative to survival, really, at this point.
Well, listen, we are always happy to help. Especially with something as important as that movement. And I know others are as well. And so, whatever information we can pass along, whether it be through here at our podcast, whether it be through APR or the B or anything else that we do, my Facebook page. I got a lot of people that follow me on Facebook for whatever reason. I don't know why. Yeah. So we can get some information out in a hurry to folks. And so, I hope that you'll share with us anything
Absolutely.
that we can be helpful with.
Absolutely.
And let us know how it's going. I know you guys are going to do a fantastic job, because I saw you do a fantastic job in just a week's time. So I can only imagine, with a little bit of planning and stuff, some of the stuff that's going to go on in terms of getting out the votes and getting folks registered, making folks realize exactly what's at stake here and how they can effectively change they can change so much about what's happening in their communities and in their lives by exercising that right to vote. And I hope that we can make a whole lot of people, especially young people, realize where they are and what they can do with that vote. But listen, Jerome, thank you so much, man. We really do appreciate you coming on and talking about this. Appreciate the work y'all did. Appreciate your love for Westerns and Bass Reeves mustaches. Thank you, partner. Hey, man, until next time, I'm sure we'll get you on here pretty soon again. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, good to see you, Jerome.
All right. Hey, that is Jerome Dees from Southern Poverty Law Center. We're going to slide out here. We'll be back in just a minute. It's Alabama Politics This Week.